In a busy police station, a millionaire cries desperately for his 5-year-old son, who has been missing for over 24 hours. Suddenly, a little beggar girl enters barefoot, approaches the powerful but devastated man, and whispers, "Sir, your son is buried." The man is about to ignore her, but when he sees the child's blue teddy bear in her hands, covered with fresh dirt, the millionaire is shocked, wondering with a heavy heart if his son could be buried, and most absurdly, how a street girl has his son's favorite toy in her hands. What he does in the next few seconds leaves everyone at the scene speechless. The acrid smell of stale coffee mingled with industrial disinfectant, creating a suffocating atmosphere that seemed to leach all hope from the room. Edward Monroe, one of the most powerful businessmen in the country, was unrecognizable in that cheap plastic chair at the central precinct. His trembling hands covered his face, while desperate sobs escaped between fingers that had once signed multi-million-dollar contracts. 24 hours. That was how long his son Michael, only 5 years old, had been missing. The boy had left for his private school like any other day, but never reached his destination. The driver, in a panic, had called immediately after realizing the child hadn't returned from a bathroom break during a stop at a traffic light. Since then, Edward had been living his worst nightmare. Phones rang incessantly around the precinct, each ring echoing like an emergency siren in his ears. Police. Officers hurried past, whispering among themselves, casting glances of pity mixed with curiosity. After all, it wasn't every day you saw a millionaire crying his eyes out in a public police station. "Mr. Monroe," Captain Miller's voice sounded weary. "We've alerted all units. We have helicopters conducting aerial searches, teams on the streets, roadblocks on the highways. We'll do everything in our power." Edward looked up, his eyes red and swollen. "Everything in your power isn't being enough, Captain. My son has been missing for a whole day. A day. He's 5 years old, for God's sake." His voice broke at the end of the sentence. Edward never imagined he could feel such profound, devastating pain. All his wealth, all his power, all his connections seemed useless in this situation. For the first time in his life, he couldn't buy, negotiate, or control the outcome he desired. "Daddy always comes home, Michael. Always," he muttered to himself, repeating the words he told his son every night. Now they sounded like a broken promise, a painful echo of a routine that might never exist again. As he recalled his last moments, with Michael, Edward was overcome by an overwhelming guilt. The previous morning had been another rush, an urgent call from the office, emails that couldn't wait, a meeting that seemed more important than breakfast with his son. Michael had asked him to take him to school, but Edward had replied hastily, "Daddy's busy today, son. The driver will take you." Now those words burned like a brand on his conscience. The precinct buzzed with activity, but for Edward, everything seemed to move in slow motion. Every passing second was an eternity, every minute a silent torture. His thoughts oscillated between hope and despair, between faith and absolute terror. It was then that a small figure timidly approached. Edward barely noticed the child's presence at first, lost in his own dark thoughts. It was a girl, about 5 years old, with dirty, torn clothes, her bare feet covered in dust. Her matted hair framed a small face, but her eyes revealed a precocious intelligence. "Mister!" The childish voice cut through the tense air of the precinct like a sharp blade. Edward slowly raised his head, preparing to dismiss another street kid probably begging for money. He had dealt with several similar situations throughout the day, always with a polite but firm refusal. "Mister, your son is buried." The words hit Edward like a bolt of lightning. His eyes widened, his heart stopped for an instant, and all the noise in the precinct seemed to cease abruptly. The sentence echoed in his mind, each word laden with terrifying weight. But before he could fully react, his eyes fixed on what the girl carried in her small, dirty hands, a blue teddy bear, identical to Michael's, covered in fresh dirt. The blue teddy bear trembled in the girl's small, dirty hands, each fleck of fresh dirt on its surface telling a story Edward feared to hear. The toy was unmistakably Michael's, the same one the boy carried everywhere, with a small red ink stain on its left ear, the result of a crayon accident months ago. "Where did you find this?" Edward's voice came out as a hoarse whisper, his hands instinctively reaching for the object that represented his only connection to his missing son. The girl took a step back, clutching the teddy bear to her chest. Her large, dark eyes studied Edward's face with a caution that seemed disproportionate for her age. "It was buried," she replied simply, her voice carrying a disturbing seriousness. Captain Miller, who had been observing the scene with growing interest, approached slowly. "What's your name, little one?" he asked, kneeling to be at the child's eye level. "Anna," she murmured without taking her eyes off Edward. "I live in the park near the big school." Edward immediately recognized the reference. St. Francis Prep, where Michael studied, was just a few blocks away. His heart pounded with a mixture of hope and terror. "Did you see my son yesterday? A boy your age, brown hair, blue uniform?" Anna nodded slowly. "Yes, mister. He was crying a lot." The words hit Edward like punches to the gut. The image of Michael crying, scared, possibly calling for him, was unbearable. His hands clenched into fists, his nails digging into his palms. "Where did you see him crying, Anna?" The captain kept his voice calm, professional, but Edward could sense the growing tension in his posture. "A big man was holding him," Anna continued, her voice barely audible. "The boy didn't want to get in the black car, but the man pushed him in anyway." The entire precinct seemed to have stopped to listen. Other officers discreetly approached, forming a semicircle around the small witness. Edward felt the world spin around him, each detail of the girl's narrative painting an increasingly terrifying picture. "Can you describe the man?" asked the captain, motioning for a clerk to approach with a notepad. Anna frowned, concentrating. "He was really tall, taller than you, mister," she said, looking at Edward. "He had short, dark hair, wore a white shirt. He talked loud, with a deep voice." Edward closed his eyes tightly, trying to process the information. Someone had kidnapped his son. Someone had forced Michael, an innocent 5-year-old child, into a car against his will. The reality of the situation hit him like an avalanche. "Anna," the captain continued patiently, "how did you get the boy's teddy bear?" The girl hesitated, biting her lower lip. "I followed the car," she confessed finally. "I was hungry and thought maybe they had food." Edward opened his eyes, surprised by the child's raw honesty. Anna continued, "The car went far away, to a place full of old houses. The man went into a house with the boy, but then he came out alone. I waited a long time, then I climbed the fence. And then?" The captain leaned forward, each of the girl's words a crucial piece of the puzzle. "The dirt in the yard was all turned over, like when you plant flowers," Anna explained, her eyes fixing on the teddy bear. "I dug with my hands and found this, buried, not very deep." The silence that followed was deafening. Edward felt nauseous, his mind refusing to accept the implications of what he had just heard. If the teddy bear was buried, where was Michael? "Anna," Edward whispered, his voice broken. "My son, Michael. Did you see him after the man left the house?" The girl shook her head. "Just the teddy bear, mister. Only him." Edward's legs buckled. The captain quickly supported him, helping him sit back down on the plastic chair. The brutal reality of the situation was beginning to crystallize. His son had disappeared, and the only trace was a toy buried by a hungry street girl. "Can you take us to this house, Anna?" asked the captain, his voice maintaining professional calm despite the gravity of the situation. Anna nodded, but her eyes remained fixed on Edward. "Mister," she said softly, "are you the daddy who always picked up the boy from school, right?" Edward raised his wet eyes, confused. How do you know? I always stayed near the gate, Anna confessed, her voice tinged with a premature melancholy. I liked to watch the daddies pick up their kids. You always hugged him really tight. Anna's revelation about watching Edward pick up Michael from school created a heavy silence in the precinct. Edward stared at her with a mixture of surprise and compassion, noticing for the first time the real child before him. Not just a witness, but a lonely girl who found solace in observing the paternal love she had never experienced. How long have you been staying near the school, Anna? Edward asked, his voice softer now, touched by an unexpected tenderness. As long as I can remember, she replied, shrugging her small shoulders. It's a good place to ask for food. The key, Mom sometimes give me a sandwich or fruit. Captain Miller watched the interaction with growing interest. The dynamic was changing. Edward no longer saw just a source of information, but a vulnerable child who needed protection. Anna, we need to go to that house now. Can you show us the way? The girl nodded, but remained close to Edward. Can I stay near the mister? He seems like the good daddies from school. Edward felt his heart tighten. He gently extended his hand. Of course, Anna. You can stay near me. The drive to the house was tense and revealing. Anna guided the convoy of police cars through increasingly impoverished streets, far from the affluent neighborhood where Michael had disappeared. During the journey, she shared more details about her life, how she slept on park benches, how shopkeepers sometimes gave her food, how she had learned to hide when bad people appeared. My mom left when I was little, Anna said matter-of-factly, as if it were commonplace. She said she'd come back, but it's been a long time. Edward gently squeezed the girl's hand. For the first time in 24 hours, he thought of something beyond his own suffering. Here was a child who daily lived the abandonment he so feared, the absence of a family that loved her unconditionally. We're here, Anna announced as they stopped in front of a small, dilapidated house on a dead-end street. The place reeked of neglect. Peeling paint, boarded-up windows, a yard overgrown with weeds. The captain quickly organized the operation. Tactical team at the front and back, forensics ready to collect evidence. No one enters until we give the signal. Edward watched everything with a pounding heart. That grim house might hold answers about Michael's whereabouts, but it could also confirm his worst fears. Anna remained by his side, holding his hand with a confidence that surprised him. Mister, she whispered, when you find your son, will you hug him real tight? I'll hug him and never let go, Edward replied, his voice choked with emotion. That's good. Anna smiled for the first time since he'd met her. He's lucky to have a daddy who loves him so much. The officers breached the front door while others surrounded the back of the property. Edward was instructed to stay outside, but he could see through the broken windows, the beams of flashlights cutting through the interior darkness. House is clear, an officer shouted from inside, but there are signs of recent occupation. Minutes later, the captain emerged with a grim expression. Edward, we found some things. Clothes that looked like Michael's, leftover food, indications that a child was here, but no current sign of him. Edward's heart plummeted. And in the yard, the earth was indeed recently disturbed, the captain confirmed, exactly where Anna said. But we only found the teddy bear and some other things. What other things? Edward felt panic rising. Pieces of clothing, some small toys. The forensic team is collecting everything. Anna tugged on Edward's sleeve. Mister, the man didn't look mean when he left the house. He was crying too. Everyone turned to the girl. What do you mean, Anna? Asked the captain. When he left alone, he was wiping his eyes with his shirt. He looked sad, not angry. This information completely changed the dynamic of the investigation. A remorseful kidnapper. Someone who hadn't intended to harm Michael? Edward felt a spark of hope rekindle in his chest. "Anna, could you recognize this man if you saw him again?" asked the captain. "I think so," she replied, concentrating. "He had a mark on his face, a small scar near his eye." Edward froze. A scar near the eye. The description stirred a vague memory, something he couldn't quite place. Someone he knew, someone from his past. "Captain," Edward said slowly, "I think I need to review my list of recently terminated employees." The drive back to the precinct was marked by a heavy silence. Edward mentally sifted through his memories, trying to connect Anna's description with faces from the past. A scar near the eye, that detail echoed in his mind like a distant but persistent hum. Anna remained beside him in the back seat of the cruiser, still holding Michael's teddy bear with reverent care. Occasionally, she would look at Edward with an expression that mixed concern and curiosity, as if she could read the torments on his face. "Mister," she whispered, "are you remembering someone?" Edward nodded slowly. "Maybe. I'm not sure yet." At the precinct, Captain Miller arranged for a private room where Edward could review personnel files. He called his personal assistant, asking her to urgently bring all records of employees terminated in the last 2 years, especially those fired for cause or under contentious circumstances, Edward specified into the phone, his voice regaining the executive tone he knew so well. While they waited, Anna settled into a chair beside Edward, swinging her small legs that didn't reach the floor. "Mister, can I ask a question?" "Of course, Anna." "Why do you work so much? The other daddies at school leave earlier." The question hit Edward like a well-aimed arrow. It was the same question Michael constantly asked, and which he always answered with excuses about responsibilities and important commitments. Now, facing a child who had never had a father, the question took on a different dimension. "I thought working hard was the way to take better care of Michael," he answered honestly, "but now I realize I might have been taking care of everything, except what really mattered." Anna nodded with a wisdom impressive for her age. "My mom used to say she worked a lot to give me nice things too, but I just wanted her to stay with me." Edward's assistant arrived with a bulky folder, interrupting the poignant conversation. "Mr. Monroe, I brought all the files you requested. I've organized them by termination date." Edward opened the folder with trembling hands. Page by page, face by face, he examined photographs and records of dozens of ex-employees. Anna watched intently, her young but sharp memory ready to identify the man she had seen. With Michael. "Not this one," Edward would mutter at each photo. "Not this one either." He was almost at the end of the file when Anna shouted, "That one! That's him!" Edward looked at the photo Anna was pointing to and felt his blood run cold. Robert Davis, 42, former financial manager. And yes, there was a small scar near his left eye, the result of a childhood accident he had once mentioned during an informal meeting. The memories came flooding back. Robert had worked for the company for 8 years, always dedicated and competent. But 6 months ago, an internal audit had discovered irregularities in his management. Not exactly theft, but improper use of company funds for urgent personal expenses. Edward remembered the termination meeting perfectly. Robert had begged for a second chance, explained that his daughter was sick and needed expensive treatment that his health insurance didn't cover. He cried, pleaded, but Edward had been inflexible. Rules were rules, and the company's integrity couldn't be compromised. "Captain," Edward called urgently, "I found him. Robert Davis, ex-employee, fired 6 months ago." The captain quickly examined the file. Reason for termination: financial misconduct. He used company funds for personal expenses. Family? Edward hesitated, a painful memory surfacing. He mentioned a sick daughter, said he needed the money for medical treatment. Anna remained silent, watching Edward's expression gradually change from relief to something more complex, a mixture of understanding and guilt. "I need to find out what happened to his daughter after he was fired," Edward murmured. More to himself, the captain was already mobilizing his team. "We'll issue a search warrant. I need his current address." "I don't know where he lives now," Edward admitted. "After the termination, we cut all contact." "No problem. With his full name and social security number, we can locate him quickly." While the officers worked, Edward remained seated, processing the revelation. Robert Davis, a man he knew personally, who had worked under his supervision for years, who had trusted him enough to plead for understanding in a desperate moment. "Mister," Anna gently touched his arm, "are you sad?" "I'm confused, Anna. Sometimes when we try to do what we think is right, we end up causing pain to other people." "But you didn't know he was going to do this," Anna said simply. "Big people sometimes do bad things when they're in a lot of pain." The girl's naive wisdom touched Edward deeply. Here was a child who had suffered abandonment and hardship, yet could still see the complex nuances of human behavior with striking clarity. "We found him," the captain announced. "Robert Davis, current address located. Teams are on their way." The operation to locate Robert Davis mobilized half the precinct's manpower. Edward waited in the private room, pacing like a caged animal, while Anna sat quietly, watching him with her large, understanding eyes. "Teams have arrived at the address," the captain announced over the radio. "House is empty. Neighbors say he left this morning with a small suitcase." Edward felt despair rise again. "He's fled. He knows we're close." "Calm down, Edward. We've already set up roadblocks on all routes out of the city. No one gets away that easily." But Edward knew Robert. The man was intelligent, meticulous. During 8 years of working together, he had always demonstrated an ability for planning and foresight. If he was fleeing, he probably had a route planned for weeks. "Captain," Anna interrupted softly, "can I tell you something?" Everyone turned to the girl. "Of course, Anna. What is it?" "When the man left the house crying, he said something to himself, like when people talk to themselves." Edward knelt before her. "What did he say, Anna? Can you remember?" Anna closed her eyes, concentrating. He said, "Now you know what it's like to lose what you love most." The words hit Edward like a punch to the stomach. The motivation behind the kidnapping was clear. It wasn't money, it was revenge. Robert wanted him to feel the same pain he had experienced. "There's more," Anna continued. "He also said a name. I think it was a girl's name. Camilla, Carla, Clara?" Edward suggested, a terrible suspicion forming in his mind. Anna nodded vigorously. "That's it, Clara. He said, 'Forgive Daddy, Clara.'" The captain immediately ordered an investigation into Clara Davis, Robert's daughter. Within minutes, they had the devastating information. Clara Davis, 7 years old, had died 3 months after her father's dismissal, a victim of leukemia that could have been treated with an expensive experimental procedure. Edward collapsed into the chair, the weight of the revelation crushing him. Robert wasn't just a vengeful ex-employee. He was a shattered father who had lost his daughter because he couldn't afford her treatment after losing his job. "My God," Edward murmured, "he lost your daughter because of me." "No," Anna said firmly, drawing everyone's attention. "The mister didn't make the girl sick. Sometimes bad things happen, and it's nobody's fault." The captain received more information over the radio. "Edward, we've located records of Robert at 2 area hospitals. It seems he was seeking psychological treatment after his daughter's death." "That explains a lot," Edward reflected. A man in deep grief, his mind disturbed by loss and a sense of injustice. Anna approached him. "Mister, when they find him, are you going to be very angry?" The question surprised Edward. "Why do you Ask Anna. Because he's suffering too, like you. People who suffer do strange things sometimes. The girl's compassion constantly impressed him. Even having witnessed Michael's kidnapping, she could see the humanity in the kidnapper. The precinct. Phone rang shrilly. The captain answered quickly, his expression changing as he listened. Understood. Maintain position and do not approach. Edward stood up, his heart racing. What is it? Robert made contact. He called the precinct's general line asking to speak with you. With me? What does he want? We don't know yet. The call dropped, but we managed to trace it. He's at a payphone about 10 miles from here near Blackwood Lake. Edward knew the place, an isolated spot, perfect for someone who didn't want to be found. I need to talk to him. Edward, I don't recommend it. The man is visibly unstable. He lost his daughter, Edward insisted. Maybe if I can make him understand that I comprehend his pain. Anna tugged on Edward's sleeve. Mister, can I go with you? Absolutely not, Anna. It's too dangerous. But I saw him cry, she argued. He didn't hurt me when he saw me at the house. Maybe he'll listen to me. The captain shook his head. A child can't get involved in this. She's already involved, Edward pointed out. And maybe Anna's right. Robert saw her as a vulnerable child, just like Clara was. Maybe that will awaken some humanity in him. The phone rang again. The captain answered on speakerphone this time. I want to speak to Edward Monroe. Robert's voice sounded hoarse, laden with emotion. Alone. If you bring police, you'll never see your son again. Edward took the phone. Robert, it's me. Where's Michael? Do you really want to know? Come to the old pier at the lake, alone. You have 1 hour. Robert, wait. About Clara. I'm so sorry. If I had known... Now you know what it's like, Robert interrupted, his voice breaking. What it's like to lose the most important person in your life because of money. The call ended, leaving a heavy silence in the room. The drive to Blackwood Lake felt like an eternity for Edward. Despite the captain's express orders to go alone, Anna had managed to hide in the back seat of the car and was only discovered when they were halfway there. Edward didn't have the heart to turn back. Every lost minute could mean the difference between finding Michael alive or facing the unthinkable. Anna, do you promise you'll stay in the car no matter what happens? Edward stopped the vehicle 200 yards from the pier, hidden among the trees. I promise, mister, but if you need help, I'll scream really loud. Edward smiled sadly at the girl's courage. You're very brave, Anna. Michael would be lucky to have a sister like you. Anna's eyes lit up at the word sister, but she quickly refocused on the situation. It's going to be okay, mister. I can feel it in my heart. Edward walked slowly towards the pier, his legs trembling with each step. The lake was calm, reflecting the dark clouds gathering in the evening sky. In the distance, he could see a solitary figure sitting at the end of the wooden dock. Robert Davis seemed to have aged 10 years in 6 months. His hair was graying, his face thin and etched with deep lines of suffering. When Edward approached, Robert didn't turn, keeping his eyes fixed on the water. She loved this place, Robert said without preamble, his voice barely audible. Clara loved to feed the ducks, always asked to come here on weekends. Edward stopped a few feet away, respecting the broken man's space. Robert, I know you're suffering. I know my decision cost Clara's life. Cost? Robert finally turned, his eyes red and swollen from crying. No, Edward. Your decision didn't just cost her life. It cost my soul, my reason to live, my future. It cost everything. The words carried such profound pain that Edward felt tears stream down his own face. Where is Michael, Robert? He's not to blame for what happened. Blame? Robert laughed bitterly. You think this is about blame? This is about justice. About you understanding what it's like to have your world torn apart because of cold business rules. Edward took a careful step forward. You're right. I was inflexible. insensitive. If I could go back in time— But you can't, Robert shouted, standing up abruptly. Just like I can't go back and save my daughter. She died calling for me, Edward. Died because the treatment that could have saved her cost exactly the amount of the salary you took from me. The silence that followed was broken only by the gentle lapping of waves against the pier. Edward saw in Robert not just his son's kidnapper, but a devastated father whose pain mirrored his own. Robert, Edward said softly, Clara wouldn't want to see you doing this. No child wants to see their father destroy other families because of their pain. Don't talk to me about her, Robert yelled, but his voice broke at the end. You have no right to talk about my daughter. You're right, Edward admitted, but I have the right to speak as a father. Michael is 5 years old, Robert. The same age Clara was when you first brought her to the company, remember? Robert faltered, his emotional defenses beginning to crack. Edward continued, she was wearing that blue dress with white polka dots, carrying a small doll. You were so proud of her. Stop, Robert whispered, covering his face with his hands. She drew a tree that day. Edward pressed on, the memories returning with clarity. A tree full of colorful birds. You said she wanted to be a veterinarian, to take care of all the animals in the world. Robert sank to his knees on the pier, sobbing uncontrollably. She was everything to me, Edward. Everything. And when she died, I died with her. Edward slowly approached and, to his own surprise, knelt beside Robert. I know, because if anything happens to Michael, I'll die too. We're two fathers who love their children more than life itself. But she's gone, Robert cried, and she's not coming back. But Michael can still come back, Edward said gently, and you can still honor Clara's memory by doing the right thing. Robert looked up, meeting Edward's gaze. For a moment, the two men stared at each other, two fathers united by the deepest pain that exists. He's safe, Robert whispered finally. I left him with my sister, 2 hours from here. She doesn't know anything, thinks she's looking after a friend's son. Edward felt a wave of relief, so intense he almost fainted. Is he okay? Is he hurt? Physically, no, but he's scared, crying for you. At that moment, a childish voice echoed. From the end of the pier, Mr. Robert! Both turned to see Anna running towards them, her bare feet slapping against the old wood of the pier. Anna ran down the pier with a determination that surprised both men. Her small, bare feet made rhythmic thuds on the old wood, and her eyes shone with a light that contrasted with the heavy atmosphere of the confrontation. Anna, get back in the car, Edward shouted, but the girl didn't stop. Mr. Robert, she said, stopping before the still kneeling man, are you crying because you miss your little girl? Robert looked up, his wet eyes surprised by the child's direct approach. How did you know about— I heard you talking, Anna replied simply. Was she pretty, like Michael? Edward watched the scene with a tight heart, fearing Robert's reaction. But the man, instead of getting angry, seemed touched by the innocence of the question. She was the most beautiful child in the world, Robert whispered. She had curly hair and always smiled, laughed at any silly thing. Anna nodded as if she understood perfectly. It must be hard when you love someone and they go away. I miss my mom every day. Your mom died? Robert asked, his voice softer. I don't know, Anna shrugged. She just left. But even when people go away, love doesn't, right? You still love your little girl? Robert nodded, unable to speak. Then she's here. Anna gently touched Robert's chest. Love stays right here inside, even when the person isn't. Edward watched the transformation on Robert's face. The anger and despair were being replaced by something different, a cleaner, purer pain without the corrosive bitterness of revenge. Anna, Robert said softly, you're very wise for such a little girl. It's because I've suffered a lot, she replied without self-pity. But I learned that when you hurt other people, the pain gets worse, not better." "She's right," Edward said, approaching. "Robert, I know I can never undo what happened to Clara, but hurting Michael won't bring her back." Robert closed his eyes, fighting with himself. "I just wanted you to feel, for you to understand." "I understand," Edward said, "sincerely, and for the rest of my life, I'll carry the weight of having contributed to your tragedy, but don't let my mistake turn you into something Clara wouldn't recognize." Anna sat on the pier between the two men, swinging her legs over the water. "You know what I think? I think Mr. Robert's little girl and Michael could be friends in heaven and on earth, like siblings from different parents." The girl's innocent observation created a powerful image in both men's minds. Edward imagined Michael and Clara playing together, two children, united by the tragic circumstance that had devastated their families. "Robert," Edward said slowly, "what if, instead of destroying each other, we honored Clara's memory by helping other children? Children like Anna, who need help." Robert looked at Anna, who smiled at him with a purity that cut through all his pain. "What do you mean? We can create a fund in Clara's memory to help sick children whose families don't have resources, so that no father goes through what you went through." Anna clapped her hands. "That would be beautiful. Mr. Robert's little girl would help other children get well." Robert remained silent for long minutes, processing the proposal. The gentle sound of water against the pier filled the silence as the three figures sat at the end of the dock. "She loved to help," Robert murmured finally. "Always gave her toys to children who had less. Said sharing made her heart grow." "Then that's what she would want," Anna said with conviction. "For her daddy to help other children, not hurt them." Edward felt hope grow in his chest. "Robert, where is Michael? Can we go get him together and start healing our wounds by building something positive?" Robert looked at Edward, then at Anna, and finally at his own hands. "My sister lives in Lake Haven, yellow house on Hydrangea Street, 247. Michael is there playing with her kids. She thinks he's the son of a friend who's traveling for work." Edward could barely hold back tears of relief. "Thank you, Robert. Thank you for keeping him safe." "Can I come with you to get Michael?" Anna asked hopefully. "Of course," Edward smiled. "You helped us find him. It's only fair you're there when we go get him." Robert slowly stood up. "Edward, I need to ask for forgiveness. Not just from you, but from Michael. An innocent child shouldn't pay for adult mistakes." "We all make mistakes, Robert. What matters is what we do from now on." Anna stood up and took both men's hands. "Are you friends again now?" Edward and Robert looked at each other. "I think we're something more than that," Edward replied. "We're two fathers who are going to work together to honor our children." The journey to Lake Haven was marked by an atmosphere of cautious hope. Edward drove with steady hands on the wheel, but his heart pounded with anxiety. Robert occupied the passenger seat, alternating between looking at the road and nervously wringing his hands. Anna, in the back seat, stayed awake despite her fatigue, as if her presence were essential to maintaining the fragile peace between the two men. "Mr. Edward," Anna broke the silence after an hour's drive. "What's it going to be like when you find Michael?" Edward smiled for the first time in days. "I'm going to hug him so tight, he'll complain I'm squeezing too hard. Then I'm going to kiss his face 100 times, even if he gets embarrassed. And then I'm going to do something I should have done a long time ago." Edward glanced in the rearview mirror. "I'm going to stop working so much and I'm going to play with him. We'll go to the park. We'll feed the ducks. We'll do all the things he always asked for and I always said I didn't have time for." Robert shifted in his seat, clearly touched by the words. "Clara loved feeding the ducks too," he murmured. "Always." kept pieces of bread in her little pink purse. Anna leaned forward. "Mr. Robert, can you tell me more about her?" Robert hesitated, but Edward encouraged him with a nod. "It's good to talk about those we love, Robert. It keeps their memory alive. She was special," Robert began slowly. "Born premature, had to stay in the NICU for weeks. The doctor said she might not survive, but she fought, always fought." Anna listened with rapt attention. "Was she brave like me?" "Braver than any adult I knew," Robert smiled sadly. "When she started her leukemia treatment, she would comfort other children in the hospital. She'd say the medicine was hero juice that made everyone strong." Edward felt a lump in his throat. "Robert, I didn't know. If I'd known how special she was." "All children are special to their parents," Robert interrupted. "That's what took me so long to understand. My pain blinded me to the fact that you love Michael as much as I love Clara." The conversation was cut short as they reached the first streets of Lake Haven. The mountain town was enveloped in a light evening mist, the lights of houses beginning to twinkle among the trees. "Hydrangea Street is just up ahead," Robert pointed. "My sister Carmen doesn't know anything. To her, Michael is the son of a friend who had a family emergency." Edward nodded. "How are we going to explain our arrival together?" "Say we're business partners," Robert suggested. "That we decided to pick up the child personally." Anna watched out the window, fascinated by the different town. "It's pretty here. Looks like a place where people are happy." "Carmen is a good person," Robert assured them. "She has 3 kids and always wanted more. I'm sure she took good care of Michael." When they pulled up in front of the yellow house, Edward needed a moment to compose himself. He was about to be reunited with his son after the most terrifying ordeal of his life. His hands trembled slightly. "It's going to be okay, mister." Anna took his hand. "Michael's waiting." Robert touched Edward's shoulder. "Edward, before we go in, I want you to know I would never hurt a child. Michael was safe the whole time. My anger was directed at you, not him." "I know, Robert. And that shows that despite everything, you're still a good person." They walked together to the door. Robert rang the bell, and in seconds a middle-aged woman opened it, smiling warmly. "Robert, I wasn't expecting you so soon, and you brought company. Carmen, this is Edward, my business partner, and this is Anna, his daughter." Anna looked at Edward with surprise and joy at being introduced as his daughter, but said nothing. "A pleasure to meet you," Edward greeted. "We've come to get Michael." "Oh, what a shame. The children were having so much fun. Michael is a sweetheart, very polite, but he cried a lot the first few days, calling for his daddy." Edward felt his heart clench. "Where is he?" "In the backyard, playing with my kids. I'll call him." Carmen turned to shout, but was interrupted by a familiar childish voice yelling from the direction of the yard. "Daddy! Daddy!" Edward spun around and saw Michael running towards him, tears streaming down his small face. The boy threw himself into his arms with a force that nearly knocked him over. "Michael!" Edward hugged him tightly, feeling his son's small, familiar body. "Daddy's here, my love. Daddy came to get you." "I thought you weren't coming back." Michael sobbed. "I thought you forgot about me." "Never, my son. I'll never forget you. I'll never leave you alone again." Anna watched the reunion with tears in her eyes, while Robert remained slightly apart, visibly moved as he witnessed the love between father and son that he himself had interrupted. The reunion in Carmen's backyard was a whirlwind of emotions. Michael refused to let go of Edward, clinging to his father's neck as if afraid he would disappear again. Edward couldn't stop kissing his son's face, mentally checking if he was really okay, if there were no physical injuries or signs of trauma. "Michael, this man here is Robert," Edward said softly, gesturing to Robert, who remained discreetly aside. He's a friend of Daddy's." Michael looked at Robert with childish curiosity, no apparent fear. "You know my daddy?" Robert knelt, to be at the boy's eye level. "I do, and I want to apologize for making you stay away from him." "You made me stay away?" Michael asked, confused but not hostile. "I did. It was a very wrong thing for me to do." Michael studied Robert's face for a moment, then turned to Edward. "Daddy, why did he do that?" Edward hesitated, searching for words appropriate for a 5-year-old. "Sometimes, when people are very sad, they do things they shouldn't do." "Like when I broke the vase because I was mad?" Michael asked. "Exactly like that," Edward smiled, but much, much bigger. Anna, who had observed everything in silence, timidly approached. "Hi, Michael, I'm Anna." Michael looked at the girl with interest. "Are you my daddy's friend?" "I am," Anna replied with a smile. "I helped him find you." "How?" "It's a long story," Edward intervened. But Anna was very brave and very smart. Carmen, who had watched the scene with growing confusion, finally spoke. "Robert, what's going on here? Why was this child away from his father?" Robert exchanged glances with Edward. "Carmen, it's complicated. I'll explain everything to you later. And this girl..." Carmen looked at Anna with maternal concern. "Where are her parents?" Anna lowered her eyes. "I don't have parents. I live alone." "Alone?" Carmen was alarmed. "A child can't live alone." Edward felt his heart ache at Anna's expression. Throughout the ordeal of the past few days, he had forgotten that while he was reunited with his son, Anna would continue to be without a family. "Anna is going to stay with us," Edward said impulsively, surprising himself with the declaration. Anna quickly looked up, her eyes shining with hope. "Really, Mr. Edward?" Michael looked between Anna and Edward. "Is she going to be my sister?" "If she wants to," Edward replied, realizing he was making one of the most important decisions of his life without any planning. "I do," Anna exclaimed, rushing to hug Edward and Michael at the same time. Robert watched the scene with a sad smile. "Clara would have loved Anna," he murmured. "She always wanted a sister." "Mr. Robert," Michael said suddenly, "do you want to have dinner with us? Aunt Carmen makes really yummy pasta." The boy's innocent question deeply touched Robert. Here was the child he had torn from his father's arms, offering him kindness and inclusion. I don't know if that would be appropriate," Robert replied, looking at Edward. "It would be an honor to have you with us," Edward said sincerely. "I think we all need to start healing." Carmen, still confused but following her maternal instinct, clapped her hands. "It's settled then, dinner for everyone, and then you'll explain to me properly what's going on." During dinner, Michael chattered incessantly, telling Edward about the days he spent at Carmen's house, about the new friends he made, about the games they invented. It was clear that despite the initial trauma, Carmen's children had taken good care of him. "And can Anna sleep in my room?" Michael asked while eating. "If she wants to," Edward replied, watching Anna nod vigorously. "Are we going to be a real family?" Anna asked softly. "We already are," Edward replied, realizing his words were absolutely true. Robert participated in the conversation silently, occasionally smiling when Michael made a funny comment. It was evident that the children's presence was bringing some light back into his eyes. "Robert," Edward said when the children went to play after dinner, "about the foundation in Clara's memory. I'd like you to be the executive director, no one better than you, to ensure we help children who really need it." Robert looked at him, surprised. "You would trust me after what I did?" "I trust the father who loves his daughter enough to want to honor her memory in the right way," Edward replied. "I trust the man who kept Michael safe even at the height of his pain." "I accept," Robert said simply. "It will be a way to turn my tragedy into something that can save other families." Anna came running back from the living room. "Mr. Edward, can I show Michael how to plant flowers?" "Sure," Why not? Because I want to plant a flower for Clara, so she knows we care about her too. Robert had to turn his face to hide the tears that flowed freely. The drive back to the city the next day was completely different from the previous journey. The car was filled with children's laughter, animated conversations, and a positive energy that contrasted sharply with the tension of the day before. Michael and Anna had become inseparable overnight, inventing games and sharing stories as if they had been siblings for years. "Daddy, Anna knows how to make a blanket fort," Michael announced enthusiastically from the back seat. "She taught me a lot of cool tricks." Edward watched in the rearview mirror as the two children chatted excitedly. Anna had gained some color in her cheeks, and her eyes sparkled with a joy she probably hadn't felt in years. "Anna was always smart," he commented. "She's the one who helped us find you, Michael." "How?" Michael turned to Anna with admiration. "I saw the man taking you and followed to see where he was going," Anna explained simply. "Then I found your teddy bear buried and told your daddy." Michael looked at Robert, who had insisted on accompanying them back to resolve pending legal matters. "Mr. Robert, why did you bury my teddy bear?" Robert took a deep breath before answering. "Because I was very sad and confused. Sometimes when we're in pain, we do things that don't make sense." "But are you better now?" Michael asked with the genuine concern of a child. "I'm getting better," Robert answered honestly. "You all are, helping me get better." Anna leaned forward. "Mr. Edward, when we get home, can I have a real room?" "Of course you can. In fact, I was thinking, how about you and Michael choose whatever rooms you want? The house is big. There are plenty of rooms." "Can I choose a room near Michael's?" Anna asked hopefully. "You can choose the room next to mine," Michael exclaimed. "That way we can talk through the wall." Edward smiled, realizing how Anna's presence was transforming not only his life, but also Michael's. The boy seemed more mature, more generous, more aware of others' needs. "Robert," Edward said, "do you have a place to stay in the city while we sort out the paperwork for the foundation?" Robert hesitated. "I don't have an apartment anymore. I sold everything after Clara died. I've been staying in boarding houses." "Then it's settled," Edward declared. "You'll stay with us until you get back on your feet. The house has plenty of space." "Edward, I can't accept that. After what I did, especially because of what you did," Edward interrupted. "I want Michael to grow up understanding forgiveness, second chances, and how to turn pain into something positive. Your presence will teach him that better than any speech of mine." Anna clapped her hands. "It's going to be like a big family. Me, Michael, Mr. Edward, and Mr. Robert. And don't forget Aunt Carmen," Michael added. "We can visit her on weekends." The mention of Carmen brought a smile to Robert's face. His sister had been incredibly understanding when he finally explained the whole situation the night before. Instead of judgment, she offered support and promised to be there whenever he needed. "Kids," Edward said as they entered the city limits, "I need to tell you something important. Tomorrow, people from a place called Child Protective Services are coming to talk to us about Anna officially living with us." Anna tensed up. "Are they going to take me away?" "Not if I can help it," Edward replied firmly, "but we need to do everything by the book with papers and documents to make sure you can stay forever." Michael took Anna's hand. "I'll tell them. You're my sister and you have to stay with me." "Thank you, Michael," Anna whispered, squeezing his hand. Robert turned to look at the children. "Anna, if you need someone to tell them how you helped us, how brave and smart you were, I'll be there." "Really? Really? You saved not only Michael, but me too. You helped me find a way to honor Clara instead of destroying myself with grief." When they finally arrived at Edward's mansion, Anna's jaw dropped. "Is this where you live? It's like a castle from the movies." Michael laughed. "It's not a castle, just a big house. Come on, I'll show you everything." Edward watched the two, Children run through the house, Michael playing host and Anna marveling at every room. It was amazing how quickly they had adapted to each other. "Edward," Robert said when they were alone in the living room, "I don't know how to thank you. You're giving me a chance to rebuild my life when I almost destroyed yours." Robert: "In the coming years, we're going to work together to help hundreds of children. Every life we save through the Clara Foundation will be a mutual thank you." At that moment, shouts of joy echoed from upstairs. Edward and Robert quickly went up to see what was happening, finding Michael and Anna in the largest available bedroom, jumping on the bed and laughing. "This is going to be Anna's room," Michael announced. "It has a big window that looks out onto the garden, just like mine." Anna stopped jumping and looked at Edward with sparkling eyes. "Can I really have this room?" "You can have any room you want," Edward replied, feeling his heart swell with a happiness he hadn't experienced in years. "Then I choose this one, because it's close to Michael's, and because I can see the stars from the window." The first few days of the new family arrangement brought both joys and unexpected challenges. Anna, who had spent years living on the streets, needed to adapt to basic routines like meal times, regular baths, and even sleeping in a bed. Some nights, Edward would find her sleeping on the floor beside the bed, shyly explaining that the floor felt more like what I know. "Anna," Edward said gently on one such occasion, sitting on the floor beside her, "you don't have to sleep on the floor. This is your home now." "I know," Anna whispered, "but sometimes I'm scared I'll wake up and find out it was all just a dream." Edward's heart ached. "How about I leave your bedroom door ajar and turn on a small light in the hallway? That way, if you wake up, you'll see you're really home." Anna nodded and gradually began to feel more secure. Michael, for his part, showed surprising maturity for his 5 years, helping Anna adjust and defending her when she felt insecure. Robert also faced his own challenges. Living in the house where he had caused so much suffering required immense emotional strength. Some mornings, Edward would find him sitting in the garden before dawn, staring into space, lost in painful memories. "Mornings are the worst," Robert confessed on one of these occasions. "Clara always woke up early and jumped on my bed to wake me. For a few seconds when I wake up, I still expect to hear her little laugh. That will never completely stop." Edward replied with understanding, "But it will get softer. And maybe, with time, you'll be able to remember her with more joy and less pain." The legal process for Anna's adoption was progressing, but not without obstacles. The social worker assigned to the case, Dr. Marina Hayes, was a strict woman who questioned every aspect of the situation. "Mr. Monroe," she said during one of her visits, "I understand your generous intentions, but an adoption cannot be an impulsive decision. Anna has experienced significant trauma, and we can't just place her in a wealthy family expecting that to solve everything." Edward took a deep breath, controlling his impatience. "Dr. Hayes, I understand your concerns, but Anna isn't a charity, a project for me. She has become part of this family organically." "And this man," Dr. Hayes looked at Robert with suspicion, "who kidnapped your son, now lives in your house. Don't you consider that detrimental to the children?" Robert stepped forward. "Doctor, I know my presence here seems contradictory, but I'm undergoing psychological counseling, and I believe that seeing forgiveness and second chances in practice is teaching Michael and Anna important values." The tension in the room was palpable until Anna appeared at the door carrying a drawing. "Mr. Edward, I finished the drawing of our family." She proudly showed a piece of paper where she had drawn 4 figures: a tall man, Edward, a smiling boy, Michael, a girl with messy hair, herself, and a man with a sad but gentle expression, Robert. "This is Mr. Robert," Anna explained to Dr. Hayes. "He was very sad because his little girl became a star, but now he's better because we take care of him." Dr. Hayes looked at the drawing intently. Anna, do you like living here? I love it. I have my own room, food whenever I'm hungry, and Michael is the best brother in the world. And you're not afraid of Robert? Anna shook her head vigorously. Mr. Robert isn't bad. His heart was just broken, but we're gluing the pieces back. Together. The simplicity and wisdom of Anna's explanation clearly touched the social worker. And school, how is that going? Michael answered enthusiastically. Anna is super smart. She already knows how to read some words, and her teacher said she learns really fast. Indeed, Anna's adaptation to school had been surprising. Despite never having had formal education, she soaked up knowledge like a sponge. Edward had hired a private tutor to help her catch up to her age level, and the results were impressive. Dr. Hayes, Edward said, I know this situation is unusual, but sometimes families form in unexpected ways. Anna isn't just a child we're helping. She saved us too. Robert nodded. She helped me find a purpose again. The Clara Foundation is already up and running, and last week we managed to fund the treatment for 2 children who were in the same situation as my daughter. It's true, Anna added proudly. Mr. Robert showed me pictures of the kids we helped. One of them is my age. Dr. Hayes slowly closed her folder. I'm going to recommend a supervised adjustment period of 3 months. If everything goes well, we can proceed with the final adoption. Anna jumped for joy, rushing to hug Edward and then Robert. Did you hear? I can stay. That night, after the children had gone to sleep, Edward found Robert in the garden, contemplating the stars. What are you thinking about? Edward asked, sitting beside him. I was thinking Clara would be proud, Robert replied softly. Not of what I did, but of what we're building from it. She always said that when something bad happens, you have to look for the hidden gift in the situation. And what's the hidden gift here? Robert smiled for the first time since Edward had known him. A genuine smile. Anna found a family. Michael gained a brave sister. You discovered that being a father is more important than being a successful businessman. And I found a way to keep Clara alive, through the good we can do. Edward nodded, looking at the lit window of Anna's room. Family, he murmured. It's not about blood. It's about choice. 3 weeks after the reunion, an unexpected phone call changed everything. Edward was in his office, working part-time as he had promised, when his assistant announced an urgent call. Mr. Monroe, it's a woman who claims to be Anna's mother. She wants her daughter back. Edward felt the world spin. Put her through. The voice on the other end of the line was harsh, with a thick accent. Are you the rich man who's got my daughter? Who is this? This is Connie, Anna's mother. I heard she's living in a mansion. I've come to get her. Edward tried to remain calm. Ms. Connie, Anna told us you left years ago. Where have you been all this time? That's none of your business. I'm her mother, and I have the right to have her back. And what's changed now? There was a telling pause. I heard you're rich. Anna's my daughter. I have the right to be compensated for the time you've looked after her. Edward felt sick. The woman didn't want Anna back out of love, but for money. Miss Connie, we need to talk in person. Where are you? I'm at Anna's school gate. I came to pick her up. Edward hung up and rushed to his car, immediately calling Robert. Robert, emergency. Anna's biological mother has shown up at the school, wanting to take her away. When they arrived at the school, they found a distressing scene. Anna was in the principal's arms, crying desperately, while a disheveled-looking woman argued with the security guards. Anna doesn't want to go with me, the woman yelled. But she's my daughter. I have rights. Edward approached. Ms. Connie? The woman turned. She was too thin, with dirty clothes, and smelled of alcohol. You're the rich guy? My daughter's very well looked after from what I see. You must be making a lot of money off her. 'We're not making anything. Anna is our family. Family? Edward frowned. 'Family? What do you mean? 'Family?' 'Family. 'Family.' 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 Connie laughed bitterly. Family is blood, and her blood is mine. Anna lifted her head from the principal's shoulder. "Mr. Edward!" she cried, running towards him. Edward scooped her up, feeling her tremble with fear. "I'm here, little one. It's okay." "She said she's going to take me away," Anna sobbed. "But I don't want to go. I want to stay with you and Michael." Connie approached aggressively. "Anna, stop this drama. You're coming with me now." "No." Anna clung to Edward's neck with desperate force. "She left me alone. She went away and left me hungry and cold." Robert positioned himself between Connie and Edward. "Ma'am, your daughter is clearly traumatized by your presence. Perhaps it would be better to talk calmly." "Who are you to interfere?" Connie shoved him. "I want my daughter, and I want compensation for the time she's been with you." The principal intervened. "Ms. Connie, I've already called Child Protective Services. They're on their way to handle this situation." "I don't need any CPS. I'm the mother." Anna raised her head, looking directly at Connie with a courage that surprised everyone present. "You're not my mother. A mother doesn't abandon her child." "Of course I'm your mother. I carried you in my belly." "A mother is someone who takes care of you, who loves you, who stays with you when you're scared," Anna declared with a firmness impressive for her 5 years. "Mr. Edward is more my father." "Then you are my mother." Anna's words echoed in the schoolyard, creating a tense silence. Edward felt tears stream down his face as he heard the girl's declaration. Connie was visibly irritated. "You're turning her against me, filling her head with ideas." "No one needs to turn Anna against anything," Robert said calmly. "A child knows who truly cares about her." At that moment, Michael came running from the playground, having been dismissed from class. "Anna, why are you crying?" He stopped when he saw Connie. "Who is that woman?" She's the woman who had me in her belly," Anna explained between sobs. "But she wants to take me away from you all." Michael stood protectively in front of Anna. "She can't take my sister. Anna lives with us." "Your sister?" Connie looked incredulously at Michael. "You're brainwashing these children." The arrival of Dr. Hayes and 2 CPS workers interrupted the argument. Dr. Hayes quickly assessed the situation, observing Anna clinging to Edward and clearly terrified of Connie. "Ms. Connie," Dr. Hayes said formally, "I need to understand your situation. Where have you been for the past few years?" "Working, getting myself together. Now I want my daughter back." "Anna," Dr. Hayes knelt to the girl's eye level, "do you remember this lady?" Anna nodded shyly. "She used to leave me alone for many days. I would cry, and she would yell at me to stop. Then she left and never came back." "And now what do you want?" "I want to stay with my real family," Anna answered without hesitation, looking at Edward, Robert, and Michael. "They love me and take care of me." Dr. Hayes stood up, her expression serious. "Ms. Connie, I will need complete documentation regarding your absence and your current ability to care for a child. Until then, Anna remains under temporary care with the Monroe family." "This is an injustice," Connie yelled. "I'm the biological mother." "Being a biological mother is not enough," Dr. Hayes replied firmly. "You need to demonstrate the capacity and genuine interest in the child's well-being." Connie stormed off, vowing to return with lawyers. Edward remained holding Anna, who was still trembling, while Robert comforted Michael, who had started to cry at the realization he might lose his sister. "Mr. Edward," Anna whispered, "is she going to be able to take me away?" Edward looked into the girl's eyes, seeing all the vulnerability and fear she tried to hide. "Not if I can help it, my daughter. You are part of this family, and families fight for each other." The following days were an emotional roller coaster for the entire family. Edward hired the best family law attorneys, while Anna lived in a constant state of alert, fearing Connie would appear at any moment to take her away. "Mr. Edward," Anna asked on the third night after the incident. "If the woman manages to take me, will you forget about me?" Edward sat on her bed, tucking her in carefully. "Anna, that's not going to happen. But even if it did, we would never forget you. Love doesn't just disappear because someone goes away." Michael appeared at the bedroom door, holding his blue teddy bear. "Anna, want to sleep in my room tonight? We can be like puppies who sleep close together to feel safe." The tenderness of the offer deeply touched Edward. The children were protecting each other, creating their own emotional safety mechanisms. Robert, who had been tireless in helping with the legal aspects, entered the room with a hopeful expression. "Edward, we have news. Our private investigator has uncovered important information about Connie." After the children had fallen asleep together in Michael's room, Edward and Robert met in the living room to review the report. The findings were revealing and disturbing. Connie has a history of child neglect on record in another state, Robert read. "She's already lost custody of 2 other children previously, and what's more, she's under investigation for attempted extortion against other adoptive families." Edward felt a mixture of relief and outrage. She does this professionally, abandons children, and then tries to extort money from the families who take them in. It appears so. There are records of at least 3 similar cases. She disappears, leaves the children in dire situations, and when she finds out they've been taken in by well-off families, she reappears demanding compensation. The next morning, Dr. Hayes arrived, accompanied by a family court judge for an emergency hearing. Anna, wearing the new dress Edward had bought her, sat between him and Michael, with Robert as a supporting witness. "Anna," the judge addressed. The girl, gently, "I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I want you to answer honestly, okay?" Anna nodded, squeezing Edward's hand. "Do you remember what your life was like before you met Mr. Monroe?" Anna took a deep breath. "I used to sleep in the park. Sometimes I went days without eating. When it rained, I hid under bridges. I was very scared, especially at night. And Miss Connie? What do you remember about her?" "She would leave me, alone at home for many days. When she came back, she smelled different and yelled a lot. One day she said she was going to buy food and never came back." The judge made careful notes. "And now, what is your life like?" Anna's face lit up. "Now I have a real family. Mr. Edward takes me to school, Michael is my best friend and brother, and Mr. Robert teaches me about the stars and tells me stories. About Clara." "Clara?" Robert stepped forward. "My deceased daughter, Your Honor. Anna has shown a special sensitivity in honoring her memory." "Anna," the judge continued, "if you could choose, where would you like to live?" "Here, with my family." Anna replied without hesitation. "We really love each other. It's different." "How is it different?" Anna thought for a moment. "Real love is when the person stays even when you're sad, when you do something wrong, when you have nightmares. It's when you matter more than money." At that moment, Connie arrived accompanied by a dubious-looking lawyer. She had tidied herself up for the occasion, but signs of personal neglect were still visible. "Your Honor," Connie's lawyer began, "my client is the biological mother and has undeniable rights to the child." The judge raised a hand. "Counselor, before we proceed, I would like your client to explain her absence of approximately 2 years from the child's life." Connie faltered. I was going through difficulties. I needed to get myself together." "And during this period of getting yourself together, did you make any contact with Anna, send money, inquire about her well-being?" I couldn't afford to." Edward stood up. "Your Honor, I would like to present the evidence we've collected regarding Ms. Connie's history." The documents were presented, revealing the pattern of abandonment and attempted extortion. Connie's lawyer tried to object, but the evidence was overwhelmingly clear. Anna watched everything with a seriousness impressive for her age. When the judge gave her an opportunity to speak again, she stood up. "Your Honor," Anna said in a clear voice, "can I tell you something important?" "Of course, Anna." "Connie is here because of money, not because of me. If I lived in a poor house, she wouldn't have come to get me." The simplicity and accuracy of Vanna's observation left everyone in silence. "How do you know that?" the judge asked. "Because when she saw me at school, the first thing she asked was if the family had a lot of money. She didn't ask if I was okay, if I was happy, if I had friends. She only asked about the money." The judge turned to Connie. "Do you have anything to say about that observation, Ma'am?" Connie remained silent, clearly defeated. "Your Honor," Edward's lawyer stood up. "We would like to formalize the adoption petition. We have complete documentation demonstrating the Monroe family's financial and emotional capacity to provide a stable and loving home for Anna." The judge deliberated for a few minutes before delivering his decision. "Considering the proven material, abandonment, the history of neglect, and above all, the best interests of the child, I grant the termination of Miss Connie's parental rights and authorize the commencement of adoption proceedings by the Monroe family." Anna burst into tears of joy, rushing to hug Edward. Michael jumped from his chair, shouting with happiness, while Robert smiled with tears in his eyes. Connie left the room visibly irritated but defeated. Her last comment before leaving was revealing, "You're going to spend a fortune on lawyers and psychologists. She's not worth all that." Anna heard the comment and, to everyone's surprise, responded with dignity, "To those who love me, I'm worth everything. That's what I've learned about real family." 6 months after the hearing that officially sealed Anna's adoption, the Monroe family was gathered in the mansion's garden for a special ceremony. It was a sunny spring Saturday, and the air was fragrant with the scent of flowers they had planted together during those months of rebuilding. Edward watched Anna and Michael playing near the flower bed they had dedicated to Clara's memory. The girl who had once said, "Your son is buried," now laughed joyfully as she taught Michael how to plant sunflower seeds. The contrast was both touching and profoundly symbolic. "Daddy," Anna called, now using the name with newfound confidence. "Clara's flowers are growing well. I think she's happy with our garden." Edward smiled, approaching the children. Anna had changed drastically in recent months. Her hair was now well cared for and shiny. Her face had gained the healthy colors of a well-fed and loved child, and her eyes radiated a security she hadn't possessed before. "I'm sure Clara is very proud," Edward replied, kneeling beside them, "and also very happy to see how you two have become true siblings." Michael looked up, his small hands covered in dirt. "Daddy, Anna taught me that when you plant flowers in a sad place, the sadness turns into joy." The boy's simple wisdom deeply touched Edward. Michael had matured a lot during these months, developing an empathy and generosity that were undoubtedly a result of Anna's presence in his life. Robert appeared from the house, carrying a folder and smiling broadly. His transformation had perhaps been the most dramatic of all. The man, broken by grief, had become a tireless advocate for children's rights, finding renewed purpose in the work of the Clara Foundation. "Edward, I have great news," Robert announced. "We've secured funding for 15 more treatments this month. And there's more. The Children's Hospital wants to form an official partnership with us." "That's wonderful," Edward exclaimed. "How many children have we helped since we started?" 47. Robert replied with pride. 47 families who didn't have to go through what I went through." Anna stopped playing and ran to hug Robert. "Mr. Robert, does that mean Clara helped 47 kids?" Robert lifted her into his arms, his eyes shining with happy tears. "It means Clara continues to save lives, little one. Through us, she continues to do good in the world." At that moment, A limousine pulled up to the mansion's entrance. Edward smiled as he recognized who was arriving: Carmen, Robert's sister, accompanied by her 3 children and a special surprise. "Aunt Carmen!" Michael and Anna shouted in unison, running to greet her. Carmen stepped out of the car, followed by an elegant, middle-aged woman whom Edward didn't immediately recognize. As she approached, Robert became visibly emotional. "Edward, Anna, Michael," Robert said, his voice choked. "I want you to meet my older sister, Helena. She's been living in Europe for 15 years and came especially to meet our family." Helena approached with tears in her eyes. "Robert told me the whole story over the phone, about Clara, about what happened, and about how you all helped him find a new path." She knelt before Anna. "Little one, my brother told me you were the one who taught him that love doesn't go away, even when people leave." Anna nodded seriously. "It's true. Love stays right here," she said, touching her chest. "And when we do good things, love grows." Helena smiled through her tears. "You know what? I came to the States not just to visit you. I came to stay. I want to help with the Clara Foundation and, well, I want to be part of this family my brother found." The declaration surprised everyone. Robert looked at his sister in disbelief. "Helena, you have your life in Europe." "I have a career in Europe," she corrected, "but a real life, a real family. This is it. You've all shown me it's never too late to start over and be part of something bigger." Edward felt his heart fill with deep gratitude. "Helena, it will be an honor to have you with us." Carmen clapped her hands. "This means we have an even bigger family now. I propose a picnic right here in the garden to celebrate." The next few hours were filled with laughter, conversations, shared stories, and a growing sense of completeness. Anna and Michael taught their cousins how to plant flowers. Helena helped Carmen prepare sandwiches, while Edward and Robert planned the expansion of the Clara Foundation. As the sun began to set, Anna approached Edward, who was sitting in a chair observing the whole scene. "Daddy," Anna said, testing the word she could now officially use, "can I ask a question?" "Of course, my daughter." "Do you think all of this would have happened if I hadn't found Michael's teddy bear that day?" Edward thought for a moment. "You? Know what, Anna? I think so. I think somehow we were destined to be a family. The teddy bear was just the universe's way of bringing us together." Anna smiled and settled into his lap. "So, was it Clara who brought us together? Did she make it all happen?" "Could be," Edward replied softly. "Sometimes the people we love find special ways to keep looking after us, even after they've become stars." Michael approached, overhearing the conversation. "Daddy, does that mean Clara is like a fairy godmother?" "Exactly like a fairy godmother," Edward confirmed, hugging both children. Robert, who had heard the conversation, joined the group. "Do you know what Clara would say if she were here?" "What?" Anna asked curiously. "She'd say that when you plant love, a family always grows." Anna looked around the garden, seeing Helena helping Carmen clear the dishes, her cousins playing among the flowers, Michael holding her hand, Edward hugging her, and Robert smiling with a peace he hadn't known in years. "Then we planted a lot of love," Anna declared with satisfaction, "because our family grew very big and very beautiful." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Edward reflected on the extraordinary journey that had led them there. The millionaire who had almost lost everything because he didn't value what he had now possessed, riches no money could buy. Anna, the girl who once watched the love between parents and children from afar, was now at the center of a family that loved her unconditionally. Robert, the father devastated by loss, had found a way to honor his daughter by turning pain into purpose. And Michael had gained not only a sister, but an early understanding that family is about love, not blood. "A planted family," Anna murmured sleepily in Edward's lap, echoing words she had used months before. "A planted family," Edward repeated, kissing the girl's forehead and looking up at the stars where somehow he felt Clara was smiling down on all of them.